Okay, hi guys. So I hope you are well, and this, as promised, the video showing you how to actually make the Swiss roll. Okay, so we're going to be using the whisking method. Okay, now in class we've done the creaming method. Creaming method, just to remind you, is whereby you do the butter and the sugar. Okay, and so you cream it till it's white and fluffy, and we use self-raising flour. So that's when we use that method, the creaming method, we made the Victoria sponge. Remember when we did that half a sponge? That was the Victoria sponge. So today we're going to make a whisk sponge method or whisking method to make the sponge. It is usually a dry sponge, and the reason why it's made like that because it's made to hold sort of more wet filling. So for example, if you whip some cream and you serve it with some chopped mangoes, etc., some strawberries, etc., raspberries, etc., folded into the chantilly cream. So chantilly cream is cream that has added sugar and is whisked until it's nice and fluffy and thick. All right, and so the reason why we use that is because on the sponge is because the sponge is able to absorb it. Now, if you use that for the Victoria sponge, it's going to make it too greasy and heavy. All right, so it's best for a whisking method sponge. Okay, traditionally it's called a Genoese sponge. Okay, and the Genoese sponge is used to make the chocolate gâteaux or the strawberry gâteaux that you actually use. So it's the same method. So it's a whisking sponge method. So in this case, we're going to use the sugar and the eggs to add aeration, and we're going to use plain flour. Okay, and this is where the technique actually comes in for making this particular method of sponge, because there is no self-raising flour, there is no raising agent. Okay, the raising agent here is basically the air that is whipped into the actual eggs and the sugar together. And so for this process, it's very convenient that you actually use an electric whisk, because it can add that air into it a lot more quickly than your hand can. You can use your hand, but it will take you a little bit longer to get that aeration really nice and light. And what we're aiming for is a thick, spongy looking, light, thick consistency that looks like cream. All right. And one of the visual signs is that you must see a trail. And what I mean by that is the electric whisk that you're using, you must see a movement or a shadow that was formed from when you whisk with it. So that is when you know you're on the right track and it's almost ready, because it's thick enough to use that trail or to see that trail visually. So I'm going to switch over to my KitchenAid so that you can actually see what I'm doing, and then we will take it from there. So you would probably see me again, so I'll just say bye, make sure you do it, take your pictures, and try and follow my method so that you get it right. And it's very important that you get this, but this is another dish that you can use for your exam, and it weighs a lot of marks because, as I said, there is no raising agent. So the technique is really down to the individual who's actually making it. Okay? Okay, so I've positioned my camera, and before I get started, I have already weighed up my sugar and my flour. I haven't sifted it at the moment as yet, so you need to have all of your ingredients and equipment ready. I have also got my tray ready, and I've lined it with greaseproof paper. And I would say try to allow the edges to go over so that you have something to pick up. So the four sides, I've actually trimmed mine a little bit short on this side, but because I'm a professional, I know what I'm doing, I can be able to handle it. But I would say get at least a 2-inch border around the tray itself, and you can fold it down just to make sure you mark it so that it stays in position, and just crease it there. All right, so get everything ready before you actually start, because once you get started you need to actually put it all together quite quickly. Another thing you would need is a metal spoon, and the metal spoon is going to be used to be cut and fold once we actually add the flour into the basin here. Okay, and of course I have my sieve ready. All right, and the other thing I've done also is to, first thing I did was to put my temperature on my oven. which is I think is 180 degrees, 190 degrees. So it needs to be nice and hot because it cooks quite quickly. It cooks about 10 to 12 minutes, and I would say put a timer on. Don't walk away and forget about it and watch the telly. Put the timer on. You know you put it in the oven. Put the timer on for 12 minutes, and it will be done in the 12 minutes, providing that your oven is preheated and up to the right temperature before you put the whisk sponge inside the oven. So the recipe calls for 3 eggs, and I'm just going to crack mine straight in there. And I'm going to add my sugar also straight in there as well. Remember, I said everything is weighed out, so that's the beauty of this, just getting everything organized so you can go straight into it. Now, this needs to be on a nice high speed so that it gets that volume. Remember, we're adding air into this. We are not using any sulfate. There's no baking powder, there's no bicarbonate of soda, and we're not using sulfates in flour. So we really need to get that air inside of this mixture. It needs to be aerated. This is how we know we have a light consistency end result. And you would know that you've gotten it wrong. The end result will tell you. It will either be doughy or it will be very, when I say doughy, you will see how dense it is. Alright? Look, I've got to switch it on, haven't I? Well, but I've got the other kitchen aid switched on. So let's do this properly. So here we go. Okay, so obviously I have stopped the camera and started again so you can see the difference. So I just left it roughly for about 3 or 4 minutes, if much shorter. It was in the highest speed at 10, and I just left it to do its stuff. As you can see, it's nice and thick now, and just what I wanted, I'm going to switch it back on again. I wanted to pay attention to the trail that it's leaving. So it's leaving a shadow, yeah, of where it's been before, i.e. you can actually see the movement of the whisk inside of it. And you can see it's now doubled in size, and it looks light and fluffy, and it's aerated. It's fully aerated. It's even nice and cold as well. Okay? So look very carefully. You can actually see the actual trail of the whisk. Okay? And this is when your product is ready. It is nice and light. It's aerated to the fullest, and the visual sign is seeing that trail within the mixture. Okay, so I'm going to stop it now. And this is where the technique actually comes in. Look at that. Nice and thick, and it's drooling down very, very slowly. Right? Again, I take this out and I move it again. You can see how nice and thick that is. And I'm just gently tapping it. It may seem like I'm being heavy-handed, but I'm not. Right, I'm just going to move this out of the way because we don't need this anymore. And this is where the sieve comes in, your metal spoon, and your flour. Okay? And there's a technique, or the recipe calls for it to be cut and fold. Now, the recipe also says you can weigh your flour, you can sift your flour 2 to 3 times. That's entirely down to you. Okay? But I would say I usually do it once, and it has really never failed. The important thing here, and what I was taught by my chef, is that if you weigh it before, it then gets compact again. And when I say compact, it just as you pour it out, it's all condensed into this lump again, or this heap again. All right? And so therefore, my head chef, you know, from college, always taught me that it's best to do half and half. It goes straight into the mixture. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add half of it, and I'm going to whisk it from a height. Yeah, I'm going to sieve it from a height. Just very gently. I'm going to stop, And what I'm going to do is just tilt it forward so that you can see, and I'm going to cut and fold. So cut and fold, going right down to the bottom, and just gently fold it in, very gently. And this is your technique. This is your technique of you actually making a whisk sponge. Alright, if you can master this and be very gentle with it, and then don't knock all the air out of it, you would have succeeded in actually making this dish. Just take your time, and I'm going to move in closer because you can see the flour still there. Yeah, so just take your time, go all the way down to the bottom and really fold it over. So cut and fold it over. Very important stage. If you don't follow this stage accurately, what will happen is that the air will be knocked out, number one. Secondly, when you bake it, it's going to become a frisbee. So it's going to be like a pancake, basically, and really dry and biscuit, sugar and spice, really dry and biscuity in consistency. All right? So, and texture. So it's very important that when you do this, you cut and fold all the way down very gently till everything is well incorporated. Remember, we're not using no form of self-raising flour, no raising agent, etc. And as I said, for exams, this is a very good technique to show creativity, variety in terms of the filling that you put into it, and good skill set, good methods of cooking, good methods of practice your practitioner in terms of what you're doing. All right. Don't get me wrong. You will lose a little bit of air, but it should not be so much that you've knocked all of the air out of it. And this is why it's important to have your greaseproof paper already on the tray, oven on, so it can start to cook more or less immediately. And this is quite simple, and it does, as I said, it cooks up very quickly. So I think I'm good there. And another thing you'll notice as well is if there's lumps, you will see little lumps of flour in it, or little balls of flour in it. So just move it around. And one of you just tapping it, just to make sure it's mixed in. So I'm going to bring in my tray now with my greaseproof paper. And just move things out of the way so that I have room. Now, as long as you're using greaseproof paper, there is no need to grease this. Alright? So I'm going to start towards me and work my way back. Right, so I'm going to pour it out and just work my way back and let it flow out. I am helping it, okay, let it flow out. Maybe bits at the bottom, I'm just going to spoon it out very gently. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of dry flour there, and I'm just going to mix it in very gently. And all the rest, still very much aerated, you can see that. I haven't been heavy-handed. And the purpose of the metal spoon is because the edge of the metal spoon is thin, so we need something to cut through it. If we use a wooden spoon, it's too thick, and so that can contribute to knocking the air out. So I've just grabbed my palette knife and I'm just taking off any extra bits on there because everything adds up. Alright, I've always taught not to waste anything. And I'm going to gently just spread it. Very gently just spread it, because again, I don't want to knock any air out of it. I'm not just pushing it literally in the corner. I'm just pushing it. It doesn't have to be straight, because ideally you will straighten this out. Okay, you will trim it down and straighten it up. So it doesn't have to be straight. So don't spend time trying to neaten it up. That is irrelevant. As with anything when you're serving it, you will trim the edges off and you will serve the center because we need to see the swirl of it going round. Alright, and that's it. So I'm going to put it in the oven, bake it for 12 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, put my timer on, come back and I will show you what to do after that. Okay, my sponge is actually ready now, and it may look pale golden in your screen, but it's actually a very nice, decent golden color. So what I'm going to do is just gently fold it back like so. I'm just pushing it back with the edge of my fingers so I can get it started. And the idea of this also is to roll this while it actually is hot. Okay, so I'm just going to bend it, and I'm going to spread the jam on, and I'm using apricot on mine as it's hot, and that's trying so it spreads a little bit more easily. You don't need lots and lots in it. I mean, you can put to your heart content, but ideally I'm not even going to eat this because I'm watching my weight, so there you go. And this is what I was talking about. You can do different variations of it. So, of course, if you're going to be adding cream to it, you would need to roll the sponge first, as I'm doing, and then let it cool, then add the jam or tinned fruit, and then add whipped cream to it and fold it back. Alright? But because we're just using the jam, I'm just going to continue with the rolling. So I'm just going to start very gently, and I'm using my hands to fold it back. Gently folding it down. And do this side, just take your time. I'm just using a knife there to scrape off the edge. Roll towards me, roll, roll. I'm just scraping off the edge there where I feel it's slightly sticking on. So make sure you actually see what I'm doing. Basically, that's it. I'm just making sure it's nice and folded in tightly. That's it, basically. I'll get a plate so you can actually see it. That's it, basically, guys. So jam's in the middle. I've just put a couple bits on my plate to actually try it and see what it tastes like. And this is what I meant. Now remember, you can either fold it either way. You can turn it on the browner side. I've actually rolled mine inwards. You can sprinkle it with icing and sugar, squirt cream on top of it, and finish it off in a really pretty way. But it's really down to you. But this is the basics. Let me see what you can actually do. And I look forward to seeing your pictures. Bye.